Hello, welcome to Political Circle on Signature Television. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria begins with "we the people." However, the people have since argued that they were not part of the making of the Constitution. Rather, it was foisted on them. Since 1999, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the supreme law of the land, have passed through several amendments. In continuation of the amendments, the National Assembly just concluded the zonal public hearings on the amendment of the 1999 Constitution in all the 6 geopolitical zones in the country. Also, a group of eminent Nigerians called the Patriots are gearing up for another conference on the amendment of the Constitution. The question is, how long shall we continue to search for a people's Constitution? That's our focus today on Political Circle. Search for a people's Constitution in Nigeria. I am Luke Mbo. Joining me is Barrister Chijioke Agbo, PhD, a legal practitioner and lecturer, Faculty of Law, Enugu State University of Science and Technology. Dr. Agbo, welcome to Political Circle.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yes, we the people. How true is this assertion?
Well, thank you again. It's obvious that the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, the Federal Republic of Nigeria that we have today, was really not enacted by the people. It was not made by the people. It was not given to the people by the people, as that Constitution falsely states in its preamble. That Constitution was annexed as a schedule to the military decree that brought it into being. And so to that extent, it is not autonomous. It does not flow from the people. It is not an organic document, as most constitutions are, that are people-oriented. That is why we have continued to have the disconnect. And for a long time, all these amendments cannot be a cure, mere palliatives.
Oh well, the Nigerian Constitution is a written constitution which provides fundamental guidelines on how the people are governed, the rights of the citizens, that of the leaders. Is it part of our problem?
Well, part of the problem is that a constitution, as I said, is supposed to be an organic document that resonates with the people. The power, the sovereignty belongs to the people, and that power is given from bottom up. It is not given from top bottom. And so what we have in that constitution is a decree, is a military type of centralized command where power flows from top to bottom, is centralized. That's part of the problem. And an organic document like a constitution should create various organs of government and allocate to them various powers and functions. But if you look at our constitution, particularly the what we call the legislative lists, you will find that the exclusive legislative list is quite unwieldy. Almost all the powers are concentrated in the center. For a pluralistic society like Nigeria without diversity, I believe that a federal constitution should devolve powers to the constituent units. And I am careful not to talk about subnationals, because in a federal state, it is a misnomer, and certainly in my view, a misconception to talk about subnationals. They are just coordinate federating units who operate in their at their various levels with powers that they derive from the Constitution. But most of the powers are concentrated in the center. And so the people appear to be alienated from the system. And this has been causing some disquiet and disconnection with the people. That is a basic problem that constitution has.
So what can we do?
I think really, in my view, that we need a new constitution, because the amendments are turned out to be a mere ritual. that is routinely done and that has not addressed the fundamental issues, the fundamental defects of our Constitution. If you go to the 1963 Constitution, for instance, you will see that what the center is not too attractive. And so the struggle to go to the center is not intense as it is in Nigeria of today. Because the various federating units are given enough powers to deal with issues in their localities. And that is why, if you look at the First Republic, it was a golden era of Nigeria. The regions had their constitution. They developed at their pace. The regional governments were able to establish institutions like universities, properly so-called industries, and so on. How can states now that rush to Abuja to collect allocation be able to do that? So much powers are concentrated at the center. I think what the center ought to have retained are things like currency, things like defense, things like foreign affairs, and so on. Those things that unify us as a nation. And then devolve powers. Why, for instance, should the Constitution provide that we have a centralized police force in a federal state, such that a governor cannot give a directive to a commissioner of police and it will be obeyed without a reference to Abuja, to the minister in charge of police affairs, or even to the IG for clearance? And you know, security matters take time. Maybe before that decision comes, a lot of harm would have been done to the interest of the people and the society. So that is just one example. If you go to the local government system, for instance, why should in a federating states the center be dealing directly with local governments? It's not done. These are local matters that states can create as many local governments as suits their administrative convenience at the local level, so that the people can take power and participate at that level and then give development to our people. But that's not the same. Even despite the judgment of the Supreme Court, you know, for instance, that local government should be funded directly and so on, it has not been working. Because there's a basic disconnect. The Constitution, on the one hand, if you go to Section 7, for instance, of it, says that the states will be responsible for the existence of local governments. Their structures, their functions, their finance, and all that. So it gives the legislature at state levels the powers to regulate states. However, and even to create states. However, it also says that it also provides that those local governments are listed in the schedules to the Constitution. So that makes it that even if you create states, it will still need an input of the National Assembly and perhaps the concurrence of 2/3 of all the states in Nigeria to bring it about. So how can it work? You know, under the military, some areas had advantage of having many local governments created in their areas. Take, for instance, Kano State. At that time, they had a population of about 20 million. Lagos State has similar population of about 20. Kano has 44 local governments. Lagos had 20. So what is the rationale for the discrepancy? And so the current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was then the governor of Lagos State. And he decided he would create more states. And he went ahead to create states. To create local governments, sorry. Then he created 37 more local governments. Then the Obasanjo federal government refused to release money due to local government in Lagos State, to the Lagos State government, in accordance with the provisions of Section 162 of the Constitution. So Bola Tinubu, as governor of Lagos, went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ordered that the money due to local governments in Lagos State should be released to the local government, to the Lagos State government. That President Obasanjo refused and went back. And the Supreme Court told him that the Supreme Court does not speak Latin, and that what it has said is release that money to the local governments. So it becomes a bit startling that the same man who fought for federalism will now want a unitarization, kind of, by wanting the federal government to fund and deal with local governments directly in a federation. It's not done. And then the man is not even talking about creation of more local governments so that states can be at liberty to create as many as they want. In my own local government, for instance, one of the oldest in Nigeria, is large, too large, and needs to be split into 3 to 4 local governments. But we can't do that because of the constraints of what we call the Constitution. That has been a problem. And despite the judgment of the Supreme Court, it has not been put to place because Section 162 provides that there will be a joint account for states and local governments. And so all the money should go directly to the states, and then it will be subdivided to local governments for the functioning of local government systems. And if you look at it, the Supreme Court itself is a creation of law, is a creation of the Constitution, and it cannot turn itself into a phenomenon unknown to law. So one thing is to give judgment, another is for that judgment to resonate and be practical in terms of implementation. That has been a problem, a big one, and it is caused by this Constitution.
So what can we do? Let's look at the several amendments in this Constitution. Look at the constitutional conferences we've had. The most popular, which is that done during the Goodluck Jonathan administration. Let's take a look at them and see what they brought to the table and why they are being rejected, because it seems they are gathering dust somewhere.
Yes, I think it's really the lack of political will. I think President Jonathan should have given it an executive push to get it done, that of 2014 confirm. Because the decisions taken by those representatives, even though many of them are appointed, not elected, unlike what we had in 1978, when there was a Constituent Assembly for the ratification of the 1979 Constitution. I think that basically they had unanimous decisions, the entire confab. And therefore, that should have been, the foundation of our takeoff in constitutional engineering, so that it will be a people's constitution. But that didn't happen because the APC, those in the APC refused to participate. And they are in government now. So you wouldn't naturally expect them to want to implement that. But I also know that a group of patriotic Nigerians are also operating under the aegis of the Patriots, yes, led by Mr. Emeka, Chief Emeka Anyoko, former Secretary General of the Commonwealth. I think really they mean well, but it's a contribution by a group of individuals. They have not been constituted. And so what they are bringing to the table is also a suggestion. And I think it is good to also look at it. Can we say that at the level of our development and given the cost of governance, that executive presidency is most desirable for Nigeria? Can we sustain it? And assuming we can we sustain the strict structures? Because the confab was talking about creation of more local government, more states, for instance. Have we been able to fund the ones existing? Would it not make sense at least to bring the Southeast to have 6 states to be at par with other states, and perhaps we'll discuss what we'll do with the Northwest? And then can we really sustain the kind of National Assembly that we have that has 2 chambers? Is unicameral legislature not a better alternative? Can we not devolve powers so that most of the items in the exclusive legislative list can be tucked into the concurrent legislative list so that states can participate effectively? Now, if the states are not functioning optimally as we should, is it not possible to also consider the strengths of our regions? Not abolishing states, but having a region, as a layer of government before the federal, so that coordination and pooling of resources can be done, so that we see whether we can reenact what we had in the 1960s in the First Republic. Because in the East, for instance, it was reckoned that the economy of the Eastern region was one of the fastest in the world, not just in Africa. And we had several industries established by the Right Honorable Dr. Emma. Do we have those industries today? Building roads are good, though. Restructuring roundabouts, as we are seeing, all those are good. But in terms of real development, we must be talking of industrialization. We must be talking of real transportation. We must be talking of making things easy and cutting the cost of governance. The present people who are in positions of exploitative advantage, can they give in to that? So those are
well, that brings me to the next question, but it's just in line with the first one. The patriots, you have said that whatever they come up with will be just suggestion. Because of what? They were not elected.
Exactly.
So they are not representing the people. Are they representing the people or themselves?
Well, they are Nigerians, and they can make suggestions for the betterment of Nigeria. They are not saying you must adopt what we have said. I think they are bringing it as a proposal for discussion. I think theirs is more meaningful than the jamboree we have from the National Assembly every now and again. They set up committees, they go around at the end of the thing. My old school teacher at DMGS will say, the continuity continues. That is what we're saying.
Now let's talk about ethnicity, religion, and of course the presidential system of government. Is it part of the problem?
Yes, it is really. I cannot say that, Nigerians are, as Mbiti said, Mbiti is one of the writers from Ghana. He wrote African Religions and Philosophy. And he said, Africans, including Nigerians, are notoriously religious. However you look at it. But whether indeed we can, for instance, give consideration based on national imperatives above our religious persuasions is a big question. Nigerians are sentimental about religion. You have seen how people were killed because they made statements. It happened in Sokoto State. What is that young lady? Deborah was killed because of a comment in their platform. There are also killings where we have seen in Kano and so on. So those things are sentimental. And they will continue to play a part. Unfortunately, ethnicity has been manipulated by those our political gladiators to their own advantage, not necessarily to the advantage of the people. And that has been what has been holding us down. Look at, for instance, in the First Republic, that Dr. Azikiwe was to form the government in Western Nigeria. All of a sudden, the issues of Agbo, Duduwa and all that came up, and scuttled the emerging nationalism. And so he returned to the East. And coming back to the East, maybe with some degree of force, he also displaced the man who was leader of government business, who was not from his own ethnic group, Eyoita. And so that seemed to create some kind of misgivings between the ethnic nationalities in the South, in the Eastern region of that time. So those things have continued to play their roles, in our politics. Even up to today, people still make, sentimental resort to ethnicity, to religion, and all that. It's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. Now, what are the impacts or effects of not having a true people's constitution?
Well, the impact is that it's enormous, because the constitution will not resonate with the people. The constitution will not be autochthonous. In other words, it's not a people's constitution. They will see it as a document. And one of the parliamentarians I respect in Nigeria, the former senator representing Osun Central in the Senate, Professor Adeyeye, Olushola Adeyeye, many times he raised this document and said, the problem of Nigeria is this document. And as long as we continue with this document, that Nigeria will never make progress. On the floor of the National Assembly. He said it 3 times, and I watched it. I tend to agree with him. Because if the constitution is like a foundation, if we don't get the foundation right, then whatever you are putting up will eventually crumble. There's a political thinker from Germany, a very popular one, is called Friedrich von Savigny. He propounded that, the development of every society must be historical. It must reflect their culture, it must reflect their morals, it must reflect their experience what he called the national spirit, the Volksgeist. And so unless it resonates with the people, and he likens it to a kind of human organism that is born, that grows, that matures, and dies. So at what stage are we? We have a constitution, yes. Does it resonate with the people? No. Is it a people's constitution? No. Can it effectively govern the people without their consent? I don't think so. And so that appears to be a problem. Why what Chief Awolowo said many years ago appears to be manifesting. And the Nigerian nation is yet to emerge. And now what answers Nigeria this time is a mere geographical expression. And unless a document that governs the people resonates with the people, then it will be a waste of time trying to coerce them to fall in line. It cannot work.
So, as a legal practitioner, what areas do you think needs urgent attention now?
There are many, many, many areas that need attention. First of all, we must ask the people whether executive presidency is what we want at this time, given the level of our economy, the level of our economic production, and all that. Can it sustain executive presidency? Let's not just play to the sentiments of, well, America has executive president, therefore we should. Because it's expensive to maintain. But if it were a parliamentary system, you pick your ministers from those who are elected. It costs. And then when the government is not performing optimally the way you like, you can get them out. And the society moves on. But this one is that if you enter what Nigerians call one chance, by way of bad government, you stick into it. And you get there, you wait until it is election time next time. So these are problems.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chijioke Agbo. It's been my pleasure and always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Well, that's our show for today. On this very note, I'd like to thank you for being part of Political Circle today. I've been talking with Dr. Chijioke Agbo, a legal practitioner and a lecturer at Faculty of Law, Enugu State University of Science and Technology. My name is Luke Mbo. Nigeria, we hail thee.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.